Hello everybody, this is Johnny S with another R6 vlog. Today is going to be a showcase of the bike. This is a beautiful Yamaha 2006 model R6. I did want to showcase the bike, proper showcase the bike, so it's not like you watching me and everything. And I wanted to discuss some things about bikes as well, so it's not just a showcase. I'll see how I'll name the video. But it could be something like, you know, discussing about bikes, talking about what each part on the bike is, explaining a couple of things to new riders, to people that have no idea about bikes, what are they getting into, if they're thinking about getting into. This is the R6, the Yamaha R6. It's a super sport bike. This is the super sport category. If you can see, there's a lot of fairings from the bottom side covering the bike. And the reason why they're called super sport is because they're aerodynamically designed with the extra fairings, just like the racing bikes sorry, that you see on MotoGP. So this is what the super sport class is. Also, if you pay attention at the seat height, I don't know if I'm pointing it correctly, at the seat height and the steering, if you have a look at the difference of those two, this way and this way, I mean the tilt, it's quite low. So if your ass is sitting here and you're grabbing down there, you can understand that you're already leaning forward. If you look at the naked bikes, you will see that the steering wheel is higher or more that way, which means, and the seat much lower, which means that you'll be sitting more like this, so resting position. Another thing to notice is the foot pegs. The foot pegs, usually they're around there. On this bike here, you see the foot pegs are back there. So because you're leaning forward, you're leaning that way, your legs are going that way. I had a friend that tried to sit on the bike as the bike was on. You know, it can happen to anyone, and was not used to the super sport, and he tried to put his leg on the foot peg, and as he tried to put his leg, he actually pressed the gear. He put the bike in gear, you know what I mean? So that's very dangerous because the bike kicked, but luckily he had his hands on the clutch on the steering and he pressed it. So he is aware of bike. He's not someone that has no idea, but he was just not, you know, used to the aggressive position of the bike. Some super sport bikes are a little bit more aggressive, some super sport bikes are a little bit less aggressive, but the point is still the same. As far as the design wise goes, this I think is, you know, one of my favorite bikes, the Yamaha R6. It's my dream bike, simply put. I think it's the best looking one. The aerodynamics, the design, the lines, if you have a look at it, it's very aggressive. It's 2006 model, which means it's quite an old bike in comparison to other bikes, but they got the design quite on spot, you know what I mean? Even to this day, when I compare it to the R1, some of the R1s, you know, not the Big Bang, which came I think on 2009 I think, not that one, but the other older R1s, I think this looks much better. Just to mention how much I love this bike, what happens to me sometimes is I tend to think that it's less aggressive. So one thing that happens to me is the lights. If you have a look at the lights in front of the R6, especially on daytime, or if you look at it from the sideways like this, it looks like the lights are much taller, wider, thicker, you know what I mean? So it looks as if from this to this it's much taller. But sometimes when I go in my garage, because usually it's parked in front of me and this is my eye level, when I start approaching the bike like this, I realize how aggressive, how angry it looks. It's got very low, thin cut lights, you know what I mean? The aerodynamic design of this bike is fucking amazing. I love it. I love the bike. You might see my shadow on the footage, you know, pay no attention. I'm not, like I said, a professional YouTuber, or, you know, I'm just trying to make some content. So let's talk a little bit about the bike, give some statistics, some specs, let's say. Let's get it from a lower angle as we're filming. I'm trying to keep it to be, you know, not facing the sun, so I don't get any glare on the camera. So Yamaha 2000 R6, and I'll try to be as quick as possible so I don't take too much of your time, keep the video short, but give you all the information which is needed. It's around 130 horsepower, 130 something, 110 horsepower on the wheel. When we say braking horsepower, we're talking about the horsepower which is after the drive chain, which is ending up on the wheel, usually measured with a dyno chart. So you put the machine on the dyno. It's around 56 Newton meters, Newton millimeters, whatever it's called, of torque. It's got quite a bit of torque, on the low end side because it is a super sport. It's got a 17,500 rev range with a 20,000 on the actual tachometer. It's around 176, 180, close to 180 kilograms of weight, making it quite light and making it quite powerful. It's got a 250 something. You can go more. It's around 267 is the official speed. And I have seen 270 something on the tachometer when I was going and I had the wind behind me. So there are conditions and factors which play a role into it, and on those speeds the speed climbs really slow. I had a gear change, which basically I've changed. I put +1 and minus. I put -1 and +2. -1 on the front gear drive chain and +2 on the bigger one, which gives the bike more acceleration but less top end speed. Since I've done that change, my top end speed seems to be around 240. But the interesting thing is that it reaches that top speed much quicker and then it starts falling out much quicker. So it's not as if from 200 becomes like slow. It goes to 240 relatively faster than before, which is exactly what I like because I'm focused on acceleration, and then starts dropping off. So it's fucking perfect because, you know, this is what I love. So that's a little bit specs about the bike. And we'll go through a little bit some of the parts just so people that have no idea about bikes, you know, can understand what we're talking about. So at the center area here, we'll begin from the engine. You see the engine, and we'll try to get a closer shot. I'll try to put myself in the frame as well. So here you see the engine. It's quite hot. It's burning actually. I should not be touching it. Okay. So this is the engine compartment. The engine, if you have a look at it, it goes a little bit like this. You know what I mean? So the cylinders are facing this way. That's what the engine looks like. It's mounted onto the chassis from here, from the bolt. And this is the chassis. So this piece here is the metal. That is the chassis. It's one piece that houses the engine within. Then there's a second piece which goes to the back. So this metal, two bolts, that's the back tail, let's say, chassis. So there's two pieces which are tied together, and the engine is, you know, here. It's 590 something cc, close to 600. Sometimes you will hear the bikes that will say, you know, 750, but it's 740 something. They round that up just to be generally on the category. So this is the main compartment. This is where you put your oil. So you take this tap out and you put the oil, and there is a measurement gauge that you can measure how much oil you have. Some bikes have a little screen here so you can see. It takes around 3 to 4 liters depending on the bike. Then we go to the top part, which is the fuel tank. This is the most common area here. This is where you're sitting on top of it, and this is where you put your, you know, your gas. You open it from here, you unlock it with the key, you put the gas. It takes around 17 liters of gas, and again it depends on the bikes. You know, sometimes some bikes take less, some bikes take more. Moving a little bit to the back side, since we're from this side, this is the exhaust system. So you will see this part here, which is referenced as the end pipe. It's basically the finishing component of the exhaust. Then there's another section here on the middle underneath the bike hidden, which is the catalytic converter. As per road regulations, all bikes and cars have to have a catalytic converter. That's the mid pipe, so end pipe, mid pipe. And then this exhaust system comes out straight from the cylinders. I don't know if you can be seen, but there's 4, and some bikes have 2, depends on how many cylinders. There's 4 pipes which come from there per cylinder. So there's 4 pipes which come from each one of the cylinders. It's a 4-cylinder. Then the join to the mid pipe section, which is like the catalytic converter, and then it goes back to the back pipe. So that's the exhaust system. On the specific bike, if you have a look here, there's a bolt. So that bolt here, it houses the exhaust valve, which usually from the bike there's these 2, similar to these 2 cables running down, which basically switch a valve, and there's like a butterfly which actually opens and closes. That's what you call the exhaust valve, and that actually helps produce a little bit more horsepower on the low end. On my bike specifically, I've taken that out because there was a faulty sort of operation, and it could not work. And so that I don't get a warning light, because there are a lot of warning lights that come on, I took it out. We got the 2 wheels, obviously. So that's the back wheel, this is the front wheel. This is the back sort of component of the bike, so it's the lower chassis, usually joins to a suspension. So if you have a look, there's a suspension string over there. You go to the back wheel, you have your disc, your caliper, your brake caliper, which ties onto your disc. You have the hoses, which go to the back brake. You have your tire, you have your mag, obviously, and similar thing to the front. Usually you have a very small compartment on these super sport bikes, so the compartment is basically this back thing here. You open your back seat and this is where you can put your stuff. So as you can imagine, you can realize it's very, very thin. It doesn't have much, you know, space to put things, let's say, inside the back compartment. This is the driver's seat. Below the driver's seat, usually you house your battery. There's the ECU on some places, and there's a lot of cables, a lot of fuses, a lot of things like that. If you're interested in actually fixing your pair and doing some small operations, I will suggest that you learn about it. Each bike is a little bit more separate. When you come to this way, to this side, you will see a little bit better the suspension. This is what it looks like. It's a one-shock suspension system, which has a hole inside the back chassis, let's say. And you know, this is the back fork, what they call them. This is the chain, so this is what produces the drive from the engine. As we said, this is the engine, this is the front sprocket, and the chain goes basically around this area and behind the back sprocket. You know what I mean? So this is the gear changes that I did. So there's a little gear there, like this big, and that has 16 teeth. I put -1 teeth, so that's 15 teeth now. And this one, if I remember correctly, is 54. I put 56 teeth. So this sprocket here, it's JT, so it's a good brand, as can be seen. I don't know if it can be seen. So it's a JT sprocket, good quality, stainless steel. There's no aluminum, because some alloy, you know, some people prefer the alloy because it's lighter on material. Let me get up a bit. Because it's lighter on material, but it actually wears much faster. You know what I mean? So I chose the steel, which is a little bit heavier, but I don't mind. So -1 at the front teeth, +2, it creates a bigger acceleration sort of proportion, let's say, which makes the bike drive, you know, drive away much faster. Much more acceleration, but it cuts on top end speed. So for those people that don't understand what I'm talking about, I'm just going to give a simple explanation. You have the engine, and let's say the front sprocket was the same size as this one. If per one revolution, so one turn of that sprocket, if they were the same size, then the back one will be one turn, meaning that the wheel will turn one turn, meaning that the distance it will cover, let's say, will be 2 meters. If one turn of the wheels is 2 meters, okay, 1 meter, let's say. Now think about the front sprocket, the front gear being smaller, let's say half the size of that one there. So let's say this one is 50 teeth and this is 25 teeth. The front sprocket has to travel 2 circles, okay, so 1 circle, 2 circles for the back one to go 1 circle forward. So you're still covering the same distance, but the engine is spinning much more faster. When you do this, it creates a bigger force, so it goes faster, but the engine runs faster and faster. So it works on a higher revolutions because it turns quicker in order to make the back wheel turn the same, let's say, or less distance. And that creates an effect of acceleration. It means that the engine is spinning much faster and has a bigger sort of component, easier to turn, let's say. Easier to turn means it applies more force, meaning it has more acceleration. And vice versa, if you have this bigger gear at the front and smaller at the back, which never happens at the bikes, but you know, you get what I'm saying, you're going to get more higher speed because the front is going to be spinning lower and the back one is going to be faster, so there's more distance, but there's less force. It's the same thing as a pulley system. Moving on a little bit to this side, let's say, of the bike, you can see a little bit better that there's a refrigerator. It's water cooled, so there's water coolant which goes into the bike. There's the pipes over here that you can see that they run across the bike and other pulley systems within. You have some air vents, so you have an air vent here which feeds air into the engine to better cool it. This is a racing bike. The temperature can reach up to 100 degrees Celsius, which means that they need a lot of air and a lot of cooling. Similar thing happens to the front of the bike. If you have a look, this is what is referred to the ram air. The ram air intake. So this component here is where the air will go in and it feeds into the engine. Sometimes the air goes through the actual chassis. So just to explain, this part here is hollow, so air will go through here and be fed to the engine, and sometimes it goes straight through here directly to the engine. So that ram air helps to keep the engine cool. Moving a little bit higher, you will see the front forks, what they call them, and it's these two long cylinders. There's one cylinder here and there's one cylinder here. Those ones are the shocks. So the suspension is from two components. There's one shock here and there's two shocks at the front. Okay, these two long cylinders which go all the way to the front on this side and on this side. And this is usually common on most of the bikes. They are suspensions that you can actually, as being a super sport bike, you have the ability to configure and customize this as per your weight. There's different settings that you can do at the top. You can load, you can preload, you can fix the compression, the damping, the rebound. There's a lot of settings that you can do. There's one bolt here as well that you turn, and this will preload and determine the shocks. These are the brake calipers. Since we're here, they're larger than the back. If you have a look at the back, they're much smaller. Sorry, the brake disc. These are the brake calipers. They are two piston brake calipers, meaning that there's one piston here and one piston here. And when you press the actual brake cable, there's two pistons which will push and grab onto the brake disc. How good this behaves is how big these pistons are, the force that can be applied, and the disc itself. There's many holes on the disc, and that actually helps cool down the discs. That's why you will see most of the brake discs have these little holes like that. One of the modifications that I've done on my bike is I put steel cables, so high pressure cables on the disc. And what a good thing about this is that if you have a look, there's two separate cables. So usually the factory one, what happens is it comes out with one that joins here, and then it breaks off the two parts. This one is not like that. It's two separate cables, and they all go and they tie in at the top here. So I don't know if it can be seen from here. So if you have a look, there's one here and there's one back there. Both of them, they go at the top here, at the top, and this is where the brake system lies. So this is the brake system. It's hydraulic, so meaning that there's brake fluid here which feeds into the braking system, and when you press the brake, there's two cables that come and they go directly to the brake calipers. This is my brake lever. So if you have a look, when you press it, there's a little component which goes in here and pushes and creates the pressure. I'm using custom brake and clutch calipers. One of the functionalities is that they brake upwards in case of a fall, so that they don't break, and they can be adjusted. You can actually expand this from this, and you can put it to your hand. Usually what I like to do is, because I use one finger here, is keep this as short as possible. And on the clutch side, I've got it much longer. So let's go to the clutch side just to show that. If you pay attention on this one, I try to keep the camera steady so don't dizzy anybody. So this is the clutch side. If you have a look, I have expanded this so my whole hand can fit there. So if I swap hands, just for you to see, when I change gears, I do this. Okay? So I don't do this, some people do that. So I've got this to cover the whole distance. This can be, customized. They can be configured to as per you like. They also have a dial here which can change the position back and forward. There's another dial here which changes the clutch cable. The clutch cable, just to show, it basically goes through there. It goes via the engine housing. It comes through this side, and it ends up being under here. So when I press the clutch cable, I'll see if I can do it. It's a little bit difficult. If you have a look here, this is going to move. You see that? That small movement is I'm pressing the clutch. Okay, so when you press the clutch, it disengages the gears and you're able to change gear. This is the oil measurement gauge that I mentioned before. So you put oil from here, and this is where you measure. You take that out, and it's just like a car. It has a little gauge, a metal gauge with lines, and you measure how much oil. Your bike has to be in an upright position in order for you to measure this properly. On cars, you can't lean a car over, so you just measure it. On a bike, it does play a difference. If the bike is straight or if the bike is like this, it has to be straight up so that all the oil is level, and when you measure it, it's correct. Since we talked about the brake system at the front, I'm going to talk about the brake system at the back. So again, hydraulic, there's a high steel pressure cable here, and why these are good is because the steel is a component which does not expand and contract. So think about this being plastic, soft plastic, and you press your brake. You know what I mean? So the brake, if you see, you press it here. It's on the right hand side of your foot peg. You press down with your foot, and this goes in. It pressures, and this cylinder creates the pressure. It feeds the brake fluid here. It pressures and creates a pressure which clamps on the brake at the back. If this was a soft material, then it will expand and contract, meaning that you might pressure this much force and that will expand and not tighten into the brake. And sometimes you will need to press more in order for that expansion to go to the brake. And if a material expands, it changes the behavior. Let's say this was plastic. It might get hot, which means it expands more. So you will feel your brake become more loose, you know what I mean? The feeling of the bike is what matters here. The feeling that it gives to the biker, you know what I mean? So that it has good control, safe, and in case of a race super sport bike, performance also. If it's still, it has no expansion, contraction. If it's still, the pressure goes directly. So once you press it, there's no expansion here. It's straight away here. The temperature doesn't affect it as much, so it's more gradual. So you don't have to get used to and unused to the brake lever. You know that if you apply this much pressure, it's going to brake the bike this much. If you have something which is not still, then this will variate and you have to adapt to it. Makes life harder. It's a two-seater bike, so you got the back pegs back here, so you know a person can sit at the back seat. It is quite a bit uncomfortable. The person that sits at the back has to grab from the deposit or from the person at the front, and it's quite high. Usually the way you get up there is you put 1 foot up here or 1 foot up there. You swing your body across. The driver has to be always on the seat first, and then you sit. You put your feet back here. But if you can realize your feet are going to be coming like that, you know what I mean? So it is quite comfortable. You crouched over the other guy. You can lean a little bit backwards and grab onto his shoulders, let's say, or his stomach, but it is, you know, it's not the main purpose of the bike. I have actually customized the back seat and I've put some extra padding. If you have a look, it's much softer. This is not what the bike used to come with. But now, because you know my wife has her own bike and we don't go on to separate on rides together, let's say each one of them has a bike, I am thinking of putting a hard top cover on the back seat, which basically is a plastic component which comes and it creates an aerodynamic. And if you have a look, my seat has been ripped off here, so it needs to be repaired, you know what I mean? So instead of having this bulge at the top that doesn't look as aerodynamic and stylish, you have a hard plastic thing which will come like not even half, like less. It will come like that and will go just one. Nobody can sit at the back. Some people also take these out, they unscrew these and they make it more aerodynamic. I'm not thinking about that at the moment, but I might do it, you never know. Since we're talking about the back, let me just open it. So there is below the bike here, around this position where my hand is, there is a turning thing. You turn it and you open the back seat. The back seat comes out like that, and this is the compartment that you have on your bike. You can only store a couple of things. So I've got, these are the cables, the charging cables that I was talking about to some people, which I've hooked onto the battery. So when I want to charge my bike, I'll put this outside like this, I'll close the seat, hook it up through to the garage and be done with it. I've got some papers, insurance and everything on the bike, and that's about it. You know what I mean? You can't put much. I've got 2 keys, like a wrench or something in case that I need to tighten something, but it's very minimal, you know what I mean? And this depends on the bike. A super sport bike are like this. If you have a different type of bike, you will have much more, you know, thing. If you are going to get a seat, like a hard top cover, you can have a look how much more aerodynamic it's going to be. It's like a slice, you know what I mean? So it comes smooth from here, it goes a little bit like that, just to cover the middle parts, and it comes smooth like that. So you only see a tiny bulge in comparison to the seat, which is like fucking huge, you know what I mean? In order to lock it in, you just push it like that, press it down, take the key out, it's locked. The key is placed back here. For people that have not know what the keys are, there's the lock position, which locks the steering wheel, there's the on position, and then there's the position which ignites and lights up all the instruments and everything. That's as much as far as the back. I'll try to mention as many things as possible as I can. So this, we're coming here to the gear side. So the gear side, you put your foot back up here and you have your gears. On most bikes, when you start, let's say this is neutral, the first gear is down. So you put down, which means that lever is pushed up and it turns here upwards. So first gear is down and then all the gears are up. So when you start the bike, you will push one down, it will go into first gear, you drive off, and then you will go second. And when you go to second, the gear goes through neutral in second. So you will see there's an indication on on the front gauges where the bike is in neutral, to let you know that you can actually let the clutch go without, you know, throwing the bike off. There's a green light that opens on the front. You know what I mean? Sometimes when you put first gear and then you go second, you will see on the front gauge the green light really flicker because it goes through the neutral gear. And then from second gear you go third, fourth, fifth. In order for you to go back down, you go 5, 4, 5, 3, 2, 1. You want to go to the neutral, you got to click it a little bit up. So if it's first and you don't want to go second, you push it a little bit and it goes neutral. This is where the gear thing is. So this is where all the gears are, which, you know, compresses and uncompresses and gives actual force to the back, let's say, component. That's as far as the gear side goes. So we talked about the controls, we talked about everything as such. I will show a little bit the gauge, the front gauge system. So this is for the R6. Usually they differ, some of them are digital, some of them are analog. They are a combination of the two. On my bike it's called the analog gauge, the rev range, which means it starts from 0. It revs all the way to 17,500. There's no number there, but you can see it. 18 is there, 16, 17, a half, 18 is there, 20. It's one of the few gauges that you see with 20,000 revolutions. It's a very high-end spinning bike. Most of the power is evident when it goes to 10,000. So from 10 to 16, if you drive it around there, you have a lot of power. The top I think is around 12, 13 there. You know, so the MotoGP, the racer guys, you will see them to drive the bike around this rev range. But you know, you can feel the power through here. You have your speed that can be seen from here, and you have some other indications here. Sometimes you know, it gives you some time, the tachometer, how many kilometers you've done. You got two buttons which you can play around and reset things over here, and you can select. I think it has a lap timer as well. You can enable and you can go. You're not really using it. And the other important component is this light here. This is a white bright light that once you can customize this and you can make it so that when you have specific rev ranges, that can flash on. And you can have it to turn on, you can have it to flash on, you can have it to do many things. I've put this to be on 17, but you can actually change it. You can make it to light up on 16. So if you don't want a high rev on your bike, this is an important functionality on the bike. As far as the bike overall and the functionality and the usability of it, this is pretty much it. It's got 120 width tire at the front, and it's got an 180 at the back. So this is very common for super sport bikes. Some 1,000 liter bikes, they've got 190 tire at the back, which means it's much wider. The size of the tires, both front and back, is 17 radius. So these are 17 radius tires as far as, you know, the circumference of it, let's say. 180 is the thickness. The front one is obviously much thinner. The reason why the back and the front are different sizes, in case some people don't know, is because it's much easier to turn the steering wheel with a lighter, thinner tire at the front and with better turnability in comparison to the back. The back has all the force to be applied to the road, so therefore it's much, you know, thicker. So that's as much as the functionality of the bike that needs to be known for any new rider that they jump on the bike. You put it on first gear, you slowly let the clutch go, and you keep on going. You change the gears upwards, and basically that's it. You got your brake on your right hand side, and you got your back brake on your right hand side of your foot. So your right hand side of your body is always utilizing the brakes. The left hand side of your body, if you look at it, always utilizes the gears, and that makes the mind operations quite simple and easy. So you got this side, front brake, back brake, and this side you got clutch and gears. And this is how the operation is. Obviously for this specific bike, this is the way that it's set up. There are some bikes that have like a semi-automatic system. There's other bikes that have different gear ratios. There are some people that change the gears and they will put them, instead of going upwards, to be going downwards. On MotoGP, I think first gear is up and all the rest are down. So it's vice versa. And the way that they do this is basically they take this and they throw it on the other side. So when it goes upwards, instead of spinning it this way, it goes this way and spins it that way. It's a similar thing, you know what I mean? There needs to be some customizations. As far as customizations on the bike, I don't like to do many things. I've seen many people that have bigger, the forks at the back, they make them bigger, so the back wheel it goes longer. Some people lower them so they can touch the floor, but it fucks up with your clearance, it fucks up with your your wheelbase, you know what I mean, which is very important on the bike. The distance between the front center and the back center of the wheel really plays a role on the bike. How quick, how nimble it is, how you can be turned, how you can do all this. So as far as the bike, that's about it. It's a very spacious bike. I love it. I love every single thing. Hope I don't jinx it, you know what I mean. Always, you know, I wish for everyone to be safe always and enjoy your bikes, not have silly falls. Even the fact that I came here to get this footage, it is dangerous. It might cause my bike to fall as it's sitting there, because that's not very stable, you know what I mean. And also the way that I'm going to turn around is going to be a little bit tricky as well, so you have to be careful. You might lose your footing. Me personally, when I sit on the seat, based on my height, I cannot foot palm the floor, meaning that I cannot put my foot flat on the floor. I'm tippy-toeing, but not a lot of tippy-toeing. I've got quite a bit of control, but it is dangerous. If your foot slips and you're trying to push the bike backwards, you might lose control, your balance, you might fall down. As far as design goes, the bike is fucking amazing. I mean, I love it. Just looking at it from the top, just to show it like this, look how sharp. This looks like a fucking arrow, you know what I mean? Space design. Similarly on the front, look how wide the tank is. The tank comes like a chunk of here. You put your leg here and it really covers everything. That's why I said aerodynamically, nothing touches your legs. You're you know, clipped here, let's say. Very wide, very low position, aggressive. You're driving through this position, you can actually shoot through the windscreen, very aerodynamic. You know what I mean? All the vents here, if you have a look, they're like fucking awesome design. Look at it. Another thing that I love is looking at it from this angle. You can see how sharp the lines is. So you can see like one little sharp point here, one sharp point, and two sharp points at the front. You know what I mean? If you go here, you will see these are the vents. There are dynamic vents. Another thing that I like is looking at it from the bottom. Looking at it like this, sometimes it looks really fucking aggressive. Very awesome design, very nice design. Front headlight, low beam, high beam, and this is a driving light, always on. The mirrors can be folded, so you can fold the mirrors as such. Not that it makes much difference, I never fold it, but whatever. I use the mirrors, I don't feel safe, I don't have the mirrors, especially in Greece with silly drivers. And this is where I've put the mount. So I'll put some ducking tape, as can be seen here, in order to create, because it's very thin, okay? In order to create a little bit more thick, I've placed that here, I mounted it, and this is what records me. And I've got my helmet camera, you know, on. This is where you change your front lights. So you unscrew this component, and there's a bulb there in case you want to replace your headlights in case it gets burned out. And from then on, the more time you have and the more you want to play around with your bike, the more you're going to find out things, and the more things you're going to discover. At some point of time in my life, when I was much younger, because I had much more time in my hands, I had actually had a bike mechanic which was very friendly around the area. We had downloaded the manual of the bike. I had printed the manual into like a folder. I called it my R6 service manual, and I had studied the whole bike, meaning that I knew exactly what happens in the engine, all the components. I did a couple of repairs. There was a faulty air box at some point, so I had to take the tank out. There's hoses that you need to plug so that the fuel doesn't drain. Put it on the side. There's the air box. The air filter sits under here. So I had to take the air filter out, replace it because it was faulty. So there's a lot of things that I've done to the bike which is not your usual, let's say, you know, if you are going to go into that process, which I did when I didn't have a kid and a wife and everything, I had more time in my hands. You can download the service manual and it will teach you everything. You need a couple of tools like a torque wrench in order for you not to cause any damage to your bike when you're putting things together and apart. And it will give you all the specifications, all the components, and it has even some operations. It will tell you on 1,000 kilometers, check this. How do you check? It has a step 1, 2, 3. Unscrew those two cables, take that out, fix it up. As far as if you ask me money-wise, if you're going to save a lot of money, you don't save a lot of money. to tell you the truth, you don't save a lot of money. It's more of a hobby. It's more of you familiarizing with your bike, understanding the technology, understanding what's happening. If something goes wrong on the road, you know about what's happening, you can understand it, and you cannot over panic. And basically it's just nice time between man and machine, you know what I mean? Money wise, you're not going to save a lot of money. Maybe a little bit depending on the work that you do. So the car mechanics, just to tell you, if you have a good car mechanic, they don't charge a lot for work, you know what I mean? They don't charge a lot for work because most of the money that they make is from the parts. They get a big amount of parts, let's say, like bundles, and they make a lot of money from that. And because they have a lot of bikes, if you within a day you fix, let's say, 5 bikes and you get $40 from one guy, $40, that's how you make your fucking money. If it's you by yourself, you're going to save $40. To you, it doesn't make much of a difference. That's what I'm saying. It is still some money that you're going to save, but the amount of time that you're going to put in, and it's not your work, meaning that you can be just sitting and relaxing and chilling out. So that's as far as the operational components of the bike. We've explained a lot of what each part of the bike is. They're very similar across many different bikes, with small, differentiations depending on the type of bike. But, approximately, this is, what is a bike. All the parts, what it consists of. We've explained a little bit the functionality, but not too much the functionality. We're not going to great detail of what's behind, let's say, of all these parts. There's a lot of integral mechanics, there's a lot of sensors on the bike. Just to give you an understanding, the computer on this bike can perform around 16,000 operations per millisecond. That's a hectic computer system in order for it to calculate and produce the power that needs to be produced on the road. That's crazy computer system from 2006. So technology-wise, you will see a lot of advancement which is not available on the cars, on the vehicles. And this is one of the nice things, you know what I mean? They are much more advanced technology-wise. As far as sensors on the bike, on that specific model, there are 16 sensors on the bike, ranging from fuel temperature, barometric temperature, fuel flow, air flow. There's like 16 different temperatures on the engine, temperatures at the front. Just to understand, if you're on top of a mountain, there's a barometric sensor which senses the height of the bike relatively to the earth, and will therefore understand that the air is much lighter, not as rich, and will change the fuel mixture and will push more air inside the cylinder to create the same combustion explosion. So this is just an example of how crazy this calculations is in order to give the perfect power at all points of time. And each one of these bikes has a different, let's say, good and negative part. The negative part about this bike, if you're going to ask me, is going to be that there's a lot of uncomfortability wise, let's say, when it comes to driving, when it comes to the stance, when it comes to all these things. You know what I mean? Because the riding position is very aggressive, you're leaning forward all the time, you're putting a lot of pressure on your hands. So if you think about it, your ass is all the way back here and your hand is like this. Also, the steering wheel here, if you have a look at it, it's not straight out like this, it comes down, which means it creates an angle on your hand. There's a lot of pressure and it's very stressful on the body for you to be able to have this position if you want to sit up straight. You know what I mean? If you're sitting up here and you have your hand like this, your hand is switched like that. Obviously, once you lean more forward, your hand becomes straight, and that's the reason why it's on that angle. You know what I mean? So if you're leaning down and you're racing, and you're leaning down, you're squatting down, you're like that. But if you're tired on the road and you want to stand up, you become like this, your hand gets stressed. So they are built in order for you to have a specific position, race onto them, go fast around the track, and that's where you will feel more comfortable on the bike. Also, even the fact that the seat is slightly like that, on the track, usually you're accelerating. You're pressing hard on the brakes, which means that you'll fall against the tank, but most of the time you're accelerating, you're opening the gas, which means your ass, let's say, is going to slide that way. And because there's an incline for you not to slide off the bike, that actually is a perfect angle. So when you're racing and you're doing quick accelerations, you will not feel the seat pushing below on your private parts, let's say. You will feel that acceleration of the bike is basically the perfect angle that's pushing you forward. Same thing with the position. But if you're going to take this every day to work, it's going to be very difficult. You're going to get very tired. And I'm 44 years old with a kid, meaning at some point of time I'm not going to be doing this for much longer, I think. If that's the case, then I'm going to get a custom bike, possibly a Harley Davidson, change my gear and wear a little bit more of a rock and roll style, let's say, and do it. There's many millions of bikes for all tastes, all type of riders. You can get custom bikes, you can get naked bikes, you can get more practical bikes. You can get a scooter, which is basically the opposite of this. Huge space under the seat. You can put a lot of things. Obviously it has less power because its target, its purpose is to provide comfortability. You go to the shopping, you load it up, you put like an extra tank bag at behind, you throw things there. On my bike it's much more difficult, you know what I mean? I've got my gear over there, if you can see, my helmet, my bag, everything, the GoPro accessories. There's no place to put it, you know what I mean? If you have another bike which is much more practical, and to tell you the truth, even if I wanted to put a luggage at the back, where am I going to put it? Look at the seat. Look at the seat. It's a tiny piece of a thing. Where are you going to tie it up? Other bikes have wider seats with metal bars. You can put the baggage at the top, you know what I mean? So it's not made for that reason. And this is something that I advise to all the riders. If you're going to get a bike, get it for its purpose that it was designed. Don't try to change it. I've seen some guys that have a Super Sport, and they're getting in and they're going to long trips and holidays and vacations, and they load the fuck out of it. The bike is not made for that. You're going to cause damage. Already the bike heats up much more. Like I mentioned, it reaches 100 degrees Celsius. That's the boiling point. And it's using water to cool the system. Obviously there's some chemicals in there so it doesn't evaporate, but you are stressing the bike. If you're going to load it, if you're going to change the aerodynamics, you're going to put more weight at the back, it's not built for that. You're going to lose your balance, you can fall on the road, you can become, don't be silly. That's my advice to all the bike riders. Don't be silly. Get a bike for the purpose that it was designed and for the application that you want to have on an everyday, on your daily thing. If you do have extra money, then you can get a Super Sport. Because my wife is also a crazy biker, she has a naked bike, the R6N, and we're using that when we want to go, like both of us together, for a ride. You know what I mean? It's much more comfortable, you can put things onto it, and when we want a racing, let's say, component, we can have the R6. Anyway, I think this is enough for today's video. I'm just gonna end it with a nice pause down here. I would like to thank everybody for your time. Hopefully I didn't take too much of your time, and I will bid you goodbye. Bye bye.